Welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast. In today's episode, we have a special guest, Samantha Thornberry. It's really weird to say your name now. Recently married, hence why it's weird to say her name, and a boss babe at work, Samantha has been a longtime client of the Mindset of Matter programs. Today, she's here to share her incredible journey with us. Samantha is a high achiever who thrives on setting ambitious goals and standards for herself. She loves to learn and is now ready to put into practice everything she has absorbed independently. I am thrilled for her to reveal her story, from the relationship she had with herself before joining our program, to the moment she decided that enough was enough, to the steps she took to achieve a body she loves. Join us as Samantha shares her never-ending progress and the transformative experiences that have shaped her path. So if you're ready, I want you to listen up and lean in because we are about to elevate your mind. Hey, bud.
Hey.
Hey,
How are you?
Good. It's been a while since we've been on video because you have, how do I want to say this? Progressed so well
Graduated.
through our programs. Yeah. So Samantha originally started with us with our major program. So back then when you did it, it was called the Mindset of Matter. And now it's been, I don't want to say rebranded, but it's now called the Method. So if you hear her talk about the Mindset of Matter, it's more likely she's talking about the Method program that we have now. And that's our virtual one-on-one calls, very in-depth programming. Then you graduated and you went to, I think you went to Matter, right? So you did nutrition and exercise programming. So no mindset work because we had covered that.
Yeah, I think I did the just nutrition and then I did
Oh,
just yeah. I think I
okay.
just did yeah,
See, the
I
problem
think
is we've been working together too long.
yeah, I think I did just nutrition because I was
Okay.
like, I need to focus on that. And then I
Yes.
was like, I need to focus on the exercise part.
Yes. So now she's finishing up the exercise part next week. Well, so by the time this comes out, you'll be done. So wait, actually,
Yeah.
let's backtrack that a little bit because I want the audience to know, as I said, what made you decide to have the call? Like, how are you feeling about yourself? Like, what made you decide to be like, fuck this, I need a coach?
Yeah, so I've used different coaching before.
Uh-huh.
I um, joined like a women's weight loss program, and it was the same program for everybody. You eat these meals and two snacks, and they're protein shakes, which, I now know after listening to Mind Pump that, hey, nothing's cookie cutter like that.
Uh-huh.
You want your individual, training, individual coaching. I did that for like 5, 6 years, and it
Wow.
worked. It worked. I really enjoyed it. And then I didn't anymore. I didn't like the having to eat such and such meals. Having, like, I didn't want to have to eat their meals every day.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to know how to properly, calculate my calories and figure out, um, you know, what I need nutritionally because I'm 5'3". It's different for someone that's 6 foot versus someone that's sedentary. And so I did that for a couple years, and then I hired another coach that helped me with like the macros, and I understood that. That was really enlightening. I did my first reverse diet, but it was a lot faster than I did with you.
Mhm.
So it was like all of a sudden I was eating more calories and I was like trying to go from eating so less on this woman's program to eating more. And then I think it's just when you're introducing more calories, you're like, oh, I can eat this and I can eat that. So maybe you're not reaching for the most nutritious thing because you're just trying to eat more calories at that
Mhm.
point when you're not, fully understanding. Um, so, that program was enlightening just in the sense of that taught me macros. Um, but then I was still having the problem where I would gain weight. I'd lose weight, keep it off for a period of time, and then I'd go through like a life change. And then I would gain weight, and I'm like, I can't keep doing this. I need to figure out, like, obviously, I understand the calorie deficit part, I understand the math part. I just don't understand like the mind part. And I was listening to Mind Pump, and um, I think it was Adam was talking about Christina and her program, and how they had somebody on there. I listened to it and I'm like, wow, that like this sounds like what I need. Like I need someone to help me with the mindset portion to really dive in because it's stuff like this isn't you don't just, wake up feeling like this or you're unhappy with your body. It's years and years of making choices or doing um, different exercises or programs and not understanding, why you're here.
Yeah. What was your like relationship with your body or your mindset towards like nutrition? So, because what I heard was you saying like I could do the calorie stuff, but I just didn't know why I wasn't doing it. And then I would fluctuate my weight, but then I had something about that episode really called to you on the mindset piece and the image of your body and how you saw
Mm-hmm.
yourself. What was that like before you joined us?
I was so strict with it when I was in I'd say diet mode,
Yeah.
not like food you're eating, but like diet culture.
Mhm.
I was so strict. So it was like if I had ice cream or if I went off the, diet a little bit, it was bad.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't good. I felt bad about myself. And in like the first program I did, you were allowed to have one cheat meal, but if you ate half of it, you couldn't eat the other half tomorrow. It was just, yeah, it was like you had to restrict yourself from foods that you enjoyed.
Mhm.
And, I understand if you're, you know, eating unhealthy all the time, that's probably not beneficial for you. But at the same time, there's balance. There's the 80-20 or, 70-30 on some days. It just depends on, you know, your day or like what's going on with your life. And I just didn't feel good about the having to hold myself so high and then, you know, letting myself down if I had that piece of chocolate.
Yeah. So what you're saying is a common theme that we have with a lot of our clients. So essentially, you had the chocolate, chocolate's bad, therefore I did something bad, therefore I'm bad. And
Yes.
usually that comes from, and what you're realizing, like your logical side of your brain is going, okay, I know that's not true, but I feel like it's immensely true. And then I keep
Mm-hmm.
doing it. So therefore, I keep being a bad person, bad. Well, what's the point in doing this? And that's what, again, like one thing that we worked on with you too, and many clients is just because you had the chocolate doesn't mean you're bad. Like, did you want the chocolate? Did you eat mostly nutrient dense food for the rest of the week? Yes, yes, yes. Then we're okay. But also, where is that feeling coming from? And I think when you're talking about the podcast episode with Christina, is you're hearing like, oh, I'm missing this piece. Like, I know I can track the calories. I know I can get like really dedicated to working out. But for some reason, those keys aren't fitting in the keyhole anymore.
Right.
And that's what we see a lot is people have gone through different programs and then they're like, okay, well, something's still missing and I still don't like the body that I'm in. So, did you want to add anything to free us?
um yeah, and then I guess the workouts too. I
Uh-huh.
was I was doing with these programs.
Yeah.
It was like how many workouts can you get in a day? 2 a days, cardio. I'm like I was doing this all and then wondering why I'm tired
Yeah. Yeah.
because I'm doing so many exercises and don't get me wrong, I enjoyed doing it. I was doing Zoom workouts and it was fun connecting with people. But at the end of the day, I'm like, how many workouts do I need to do to stay fit? Like if I want to have, a baby or if I want to get another job or do something with family, I'm trying to figure out how to fit all these workouts in here
Right.
and it's not realistic. And that was the biggest thing was trying to set realistic goals.
Did you feel like a failure when you didn't complete the workouts, like as they said that to?
Um, you know, it was like a gray line. It was one of
Yeah.
those lines where you only had to do it for so long. So it
Uh-huh.
was like I do it for the 30 days, do it for, you know, 60 days or whatever. And then I was like, well, I deserve that rest day. And
Um,
and it worked itself in there like, oh, now it's okay to rest when
um,
in reality like do you really need that many workouts a week? You know, obviously I'm finding out no.
Yeah.
So,
So you have the call, or it's called, so we call it a clarity call.
mhm,
You sign up for coaching. You and I
yep.
meet. What's going through your mind then?
Well, so originally I was thinking that I don't need the video calls.
Like, I'm actually really good at this. I just need to be told how to do
Well,
it.
I was like, it's okay. Like I go to therapy, so I'm okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That happens a lot.
But then like after, like, or I think it was more of I didn't know what we were going to talk about. And I thought
Um,
that I was going to have to lead it. And I'm like, this is going to be an awkward, 20 minutes, or she's going to be like, how are you? And I'm going to be like, okay. Like, but it was nice that, you know, when Christina talked about you, she, explained, the different, your background and the different things, we'd go over. Um, and then when I met with you, I was like, okay, like that's, good. I don't have to talk, about every little piece we go over, but we pinpointed different things. And then, after, I did all my calls, I was kind of like, I want more calls.
like, hang on.
So,
So, what did you originally, when we did this though, with the calls? So, we
mhm,
utilize the calls as a way. So, different coaches for our program have different reasoning and use of the calls.
mhm,
For me, I like, because when we have our highest tier program, so AKA the method, you're getting nutrition coaching, personal coaching, for your strength training, and then, or I mean, if you have like a running goal or like a hike goal or something like that, we do include that. But then what you're working on more so is the mindset piece. And so
mhm.
the way I like to direct my calls with clients is to say, I can easily message you back and forth about like the training piece or the nutrition piece, but I feel like with the calls, the mindset piece deserves a little bit more interaction. So we're going through this. What's happening to you as we're working through each of these kind of assignments or processes? What are you realizing? What are you thinking? Walk us through that.
I think that for just the like boyfriend point of, husband now, I wasn't used to, you know, he eats a lot more than I do. And he, wants to make me dinner, and I'm kind of like, I don't want to eat this
Yeah.
because he's adding, a bunch of cheese, a bunch of butter, a bunch of different stuff that like I don't need to eat because, I don't want to gain any weight. And I had a lot of fear with that. And we worked through it where, I was still, I believe we started with the like maintenance and reverse dieting.
Hmm.
So that was a little bit easier to be able to add more calories because, that wasn't is challenging because you're, adding more. But I had a hard time with like measuring because he's going like,
Hmm.
handful of cheese, and I'm just like, how do I do this? And you're just like, do the best you can, with how much you're measuring yourself, how much it looks like, you estimate, the best you can. So that was new to me because in my head, I'm thinking, well, it's not perfect. It's not exact. It's not, you know, the way, it's not the actual weight because I'm not weighing it. And you would tell me that, I can't remember your specific words, but you'd say that if you're estimating the same way, that's accurate. So, or something similar to those
Yeah, I
lines.
think usually I say your guesstimates are just as accurate as your guesses or something.
Yes,
And
something
it's
like that.
yeah, I forget. It's like if you accurately guess, then it's pretty accurate because what I have, and for what you learn too for coaching is honestly, these calorie calculators are completely inaccurate. And they can be off,
Mhm.
like even your food labels can be off by 40%. So if you're consistently putting in your most accurate guesstimates, it's going to be consistent over time, right? So if you put in, like, we'll say, for example, with Cole, you put in like a cup of cheese, which is a lot, but I mean, that's what he would
Yeah.
do. He puts in a cup of cheese and like maybe sometimes it's, a cup and three, four, or we'll say a cup and like,
That's a
uh,
lot.
yeah, we'll say maybe he did a cup and like a little bit more, but then
Yeah.
sometimes he would do a cup and a little bit less. Well, over time, it's going to be accurate. Now, this is for someone who is in a different phase. So with Samantha, what she's talking about is we were initially working on like, let's just see how much you can eat. Because there's always been this, like for you, a target of eating. Like you said, I need to eat to these less amount of calories with this one diet plan. And then this other one, I was just eating as much as I could to get to this one diet. And it's like, well, why don't we see what makes you feel good?
Mhm.
And also let you see, you know, it's not the end of the world that he adds butter or oil or cheese and or all three and you guys get dessert. It's what you do throughout the week too that's important as well. Especially because you like to bake and you like to make stuff. So that
Mhm.
was also one thing that was important to you of like I need to be able to have more freedom around having these treats and like eating with my significant other. Like I can't not eat with him because he might add cheese. And then, because I
Right.
remember at one time, I think we had the dialogue of like, because I think you were considering making a separate meal or something. I don't recall the exact circumstances.
But probably that sounds like
Yeah.
me.
And I was like, yeah, I was like, no, no, no. I said, if you want to do that, that's fine, but here, let's talk about the trade-offs of that. Let's also talk about the longevity of that because I knew you guys wanted kids eventually at some point. And so he's going to make a meal, you're going to make a meal, and then we got to make a third meal for the kid. And I think you're like, oh God, that's,
Yeah, I was like, that just sounds really bad.
yeah.
So, I mean, like, what we kind of do now is if you make something, I'm like, okay, just lightly cheese, like
Hmm.
just for my own,
Sanity.
stomach issues though, because it's like I don't need a lot of cheese. That's not gonna
Right.
make me not feel good.
Yeah.
So, and I think one of the biggest things I learned was when we were talking about what people have said to you as a child and stuff like that. And I know like me and Cole have had conversations about how we want to talk to our kids
Hmm.
and how different interactions and what's okay to talk about, what's not okay, what like different foods that are around family that are going to be like an everyday thing or once in a while treat. And it was just really interesting to do the I guess the work and write it down in the week and then talk about it and then realize, wow, like this has been I'm 30 years old, 30, 31 years old, and this is I remember this exact feeling 20 years ago. Like when I was, 8 years old, 10 years old. I'm like, that's insane to have that pit in your stomach, when someone comments on your body, whether it's good or bad. It's really, you could take it either way as a kid because you just don't know what, what's happening.
Did you find yourself? So let's talk a little bit about that because I think that's
Yeah.
really important. So you're finding yourself like doing the assignments, realizing, oh, the way I talk to myself was and how I feel about certain things of my health journey, we'll blanket it, is similar to a feeling I had when I was in childhood.
Hmm.
And now I'm able to at least bring awareness to that and know that feeling isn't something that I did wrong. Right. And
Hmm.
that helped you have a bit more freedom in your life and in your flexibility with your training and everything.
Yeah.
So you're going through that. What kinds of things did you realize? Like, what was the feeling? Like a pit in your stomach? Was it more so? I guess what I want to ask is, what did you tell yourself? Was it like, I'm just a lazy piece of shit? Or like, what were the words that you said?
I think after I realized what was, you know, um, I honestly, I don't even know what I was telling myself. There was
Yeah.
probably many things,
Yeah.
like, um, and I think it is, I remember more of like the realization
Okay.
of what kind of went through my head when we had that conversation. And you saw the look on my face when I had it, because you're like, hey, you got it now. And I'm just like, wow, wow, like that's amazing. I would have never in a million years would have put two and two together, because when you work with a therapist, you know, they're great at what they do, but they may not have the food piece or
Mm-hmm.
the understanding of the body piece.
Mm-hmm.
And a personal trainer, they're great at, personal training and nutrition coaching and all that stuff. But I needed it together.
Mm-hmm.
I needed the realization of, um, you know, you're not talking to yourself well in your head, possibly because either, other people have commented negatively,
Mm-hmm.
on your body, or um, or maybe like an older adult family has talked negatively about themselves, and you are looking at them thinking, well, what's wrong with them? They look fine. Or they, they comment on your, oh, like white chicks or whatever, back fat Betty and
Mm-hmm.
Tina the talking tummy, all that, it's funny in movies, but as a kid when you're watching it, it's like, well, any type of a tummy is bad. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, everyone has a tummy, whether it's a pregnant tummy, a leaner
Sit down.
tummy,
Yeah. Sit down tummy.
a sit
Like,
down tummy. Yeah, I mean, everyone has a little bit of something. Otherwise, you wouldn't be a human person.
mhm.
And I think I just want to say that's what made me realize is you had pointed out, like, more logically for different things, like, well, well, everyone has a tummy, or um, just to go off of the food one really quick, is I asked you if it was okay if I ate popcorn at one time, and you were like, well, are you going to eat popcorn in the future? And I was like, well, yeah, probably. And you're like, well, then yeah, eat it. I'm like, okay. And it made me laugh so hard, because I'm like, oh my God, like, how did I not know that? Like, why did I have to ask? And it's the same thing with what I do now. I'm like, I ask, if I want something, I'm like, do I want it? Yeah. Like, am I going to want it later? Yeah. So take the time and just eat it now, and then be done with it. And you don't have to think about it ever again.
That's so funny. Yeah, I remember that conversation being like, why would we restrict popcorn? Like, is there something I'm missing about popcorn? Like, I
I
mean, I
don't,
don't know.
I didn't
But
know either,
well, but that's what
apparently.
like a lot of I think in your defense on that, and even in my own like struggles, is we don't like walk through that initial thought, right? So
Mhm.
you're thinking like, shit, is popcorn on my plan? And I'm like, what plan are you talking about? Like the plan is for you to just feel good in your body, right? And so more so, is popcorn fit my nutrient goals? Well, I don't know. You tell me. Like, have you had enough protein today? Did you get your colors today? Do you feel good? Like, do you enjoy popcorn or do you hate popcorn? And so what I find is a lot of clients go, oh, popcorn's bad, for example, or cookies are bad, or fruit sometimes is bad because of the sugar, right? And so I'm trying not to have sugar. And the expectation is like, so are you never going to have that ever again? Because if we keep reinforcing that popcorn is bad, I shouldn't be having it, then you
Mhm.
go for the popcorn, you're just reinforcing I'm bad. Therefore, this isn't going to work for me. Or if you want like fruit, I mean, fruit is great, but if you every time you have a piece of it and you're like, oh gosh, I know I shouldn't because of the sugar, you have to think that's reinforcing an underlying belief in your brain. And
Mhm.
so when I ask clients, like you said, like, are you going to have it again? It's because I literally want you to walk through of like, is what I'm asking you is it realistic for you not to eat this? Because if it is realistic to never have popcorn again, yeah, then don't have it. But if you're going to go to the movie theater and you guys really enjoy having popcorn together, then yeah, like let's make sure that you enjoy it, but that you're not overdoing it where you feel guilty. Okay, so we got lighter on the workout. So I lighter, what I mean is like mentally free there too. We're feeling more availability of what we can have for food wise.
Mhm.
Mindset wise, we're starting to make these connections of how past experiences impact how we feel about our choices or how we talk to ourselves. This is all through. So at this point, you're probably eating reverse dieting. We're probably at maintenance. I want you to talk about your experience of going through a weight loss phase with us too, because I think that's important to know. Like, so most of my clients, when they start, we're not doing a weight loss phase unless
Right.
and it sucks, right? Because most of us come to this program wanting weight loss. And I'm going, we will, but I'm not going to tell you when because we need to meet these standards and we need to make sure you're okay. And honestly, you might see change without the weight loss, which you did,
Mhm.
but then we were at a good place. So let's talk about your experience with that and I'll shut up.
Yeah, so just in like the weight loss in general,
Uh-huh.
I don't think like I can see it now in past pictures, but in the moment, even looking at the last couple of months, it's hard to tell for
Of
me.
course.
Like I would be like, oh, I don't see a difference because any other program I did, I was doing drastic things. So I was having a
Drastic
drastic
changes.
change. And, you know, it's not realistic because, where do you move the needle after that? And,
Mhm.
I obviously learned that. And I mean, the weight loss phase, I think I went from 2,300 calories to 1,800 calories. And it was so relaxing. Like it was like, I don't, it was just, I wasn't starving to death. Yeah, I was hungry because, of course, you're in a calorie deficit, but it wasn't like, oh, I ate all my calories by lunch. What am I going to do for dinner?
Mhm.
Soup, water. I mean, like, yeah, you don't
Yeah.
have options.
Lemon juice.
Really. So I just planned out my meals. I was familiar, I cannot talk, familiar with meal prepping.
Mhm.
So I would plan out my meals and I call emergency meals where I
Uh-huh.
have easy meals in the freezer and they're the similar, caloric nutritional information that's in my fitness pal and that's how I tracked everything. And I was able to go to baby showers, bridal showers. We did this during like Halloween. I still had my
Mhm.
couple of pieces of candy. I'm not a huge Halloween candy person unless it's there, then I'll
Well,
have a
then
couple
you
of
had the
pieces.
caramel apples too, because I
Oh yeah, the
remember
caramel
I remember
apples.
that was like we had to really strategize that
Yeah,
one.
those are my favorite.
I
Yes.
know.
Yeah,
I
I was like, how am I going to get these because they're only during the fall and we talked about compromising, like we could do a weight loss phase at another time if it's that important to you. If you want to enjoy one, once a week, twice a week, whatever you wanted to do, like let me know. And I was like, well, I think I can just have the one a week and I'll split it up. So I would have a couple pieces throughout the week. And it fit. I mean, some days I had, obviously more than other days, but at the end of the week, it all fit into my deficit. So I was
Mhm.
able to still enjoy something that I only get, once a year. I don't say once a year for a month. It's really
Well, but that's important to share though, because that again, so this goes back to, are you going to have the caramel apples this year? Probably.
probably, yeah.
Yeah. And now you have a toolkit of if you do want to go into a deficit during that time, you have a strategy. Or say you don't go into a deficit at that time, but you're realizing, man, if I have the whole caramel apple in one sitting, I really don't feel very good. Because sometimes that can happen too. And now you go,
Yeah.
oh, well, I can just break it up throughout the week. And I don't have to modify my calories as much to um, help support that treat. And it, because it, for the people listening, when you do something like Samantha did, it really takes away like the luster of that caramel apple, because before it was like this unrestricted treat for you. You really shouldn't have it. It only comes once a year. And oh my gosh, if I don't have it now, then I don't get it for another year. It became almost like this fantasy relationship that you're having with it. Instead of just saying, giving yourself the permission to have it, and you can have it when you're in a cut or a weight loss phase and still
Hmm.
achieve the results you did.
I feel like it's the same for Christmas cookies, like those
Hmm.
holiday type of things. So actually, what I did this year was I froze the dough into single servings,
Oh,
and then
yum.
I can just have, one or two when I feel like it. It's not
Uh-huh.
this, oh, I have to try one out of each um, you know, pan that I bake,
Hmm.
because I will not, eat them myself, but I'll try them to make sure they're good. Like justifying, why can't I just have the cookie if I want it?
Right.
Who cares at the end of the day?
Right. Well, and I think people do that too. If they try to justify how they deserve it,
Hmm.
or they'll try and find an alternate way, like to eat the cookie. So, like for example, they'll find a paleo cookie instead,
Hmm.
and it's like, okay, it still has the same amount of calories and sugar. It
Right.
doesn't make it any. You're just exchanging one thing for another based on the labeling. And at the end of the day, it's probably more likely that you would enjoy like the regular cookie as opposed to the semi-healthy cookie. And so just have the regular cookie. Like,
Right. And I did that too.
yeah.
And I did that too. I mean, I still, within reason, still do that, where I'll add a little bit of protein powder and
Yeah.
make, healthier desserts or whatever, because I do want to enjoy them more often than
Hmm.
not. But at the same time, it does make me feel better versus eating, what is the big cookie, the crumble cookie.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
just, I'm not a fan. Those are, I'm sorry, those are
I
not
know.
them.
Sorry. I don't like those either.
Sorry. I'm like,
Those are ones
sorry.
I love a good cookie, but I do not like crumble cookies. So,
Yeah.
but if they want to sponsor us, I will gladly change my mind.
I'm sorry, I won't. Just kidding.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah. Um, but so like that was a huge thing in my past, is I was adding protein powder to everything. I was having
Hmm.
3 scoops, 3 servings of protein powder, or like 3 shakes a day.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah. And so when I started listening to Mind Pump, that was a huge thing of, they're like, just eat real food. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, let me do that. And then, we talked about how much protein, I should be eating. And I'm like, okay, like I got to do the real food. And I'm like, okay, like let me figure out how to, manipulate recipes to get more protein, because it's just, we're not a protein heavy world. It's just the way
Hmm.
it is. And I mean, now I have protein powder maybe once a day, if even,
Hmm.
but otherwise I try to get it from whole natural foods. And that was a whole process of trying to figure out, what I enjoy eating that's not going to make me sick from, no one wants to eat 2 pounds of chicken a day.
Right.
It's not appetizing. But if you make like a protein waffle for breakfast and had some, chicken sausage, and then for lunch you have, tacos, and, it was all food that I enjoyed eating.
Hmm.
It's just I bumped up the protein. But in a previous cut, if I would have done it myself, I would have been cutting probably some protein, because like it was a calorie,
Yeah.
at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. It was a number, not a necessary.
Right.
Yeah. And that's what, like for clients, the protein usually stays the same or about the same depending on where it is. I like to drop the carbs and I like my fats for y'all at a minimum of a number.
Hmm.
And now that depends on the client too, right? Like, so not every
Right.
client. So you went from 23 to 18. I might not do that with every client, but for you, you felt good at 18, right? And you were consistent with it. Whereas some
Hmm.
clients maybe were not consistent at 1800, but we can stay consistent at 2000. Great. Let's stay there. And then that'll just be our number. And
Hmm.
we just change our expectations of fat loss throughout that time. But that's all right because we're planning for it.
Hmm.
Cool. And I think it's interesting. I want you to talk about this because we didn't, you wanted to learn how to do it yourself.
Yes.
Talk about that.
I wanted to just be able, I like learning. I just
Yeah.
really enjoy it. And I thought about being a personal trainer a couple years ago.
Uh-huh.
And then with COVID, it just was just too much. I ended up getting a second job, and I just couldn't do everything. I
Yeah.
just, one of those things that you can't do everything,
Hmm.
even though I try. Um, and so I was like looking at it again, and I'm like, well, I could learn, through you guys as well, and possibly get my own certification, because then I have, I can ask questions to you, and um, you can kind of show me, what you're looking at. and I can
Mhm.
send you videos and stuff, kind of like in the Matter program, since that was also included as well.
Mhm.
Um, and I think it was, I'm trying to think, it might have been in one of your webinars that was included. That's now, I think now you guys just do the podcast,
Mhm.
and you were talking about your experience and all your like different past things that you went through. And I'm like, oh well, I'm like, well, if she can do this, then I can do it too, because
Mhm.
in my original thought process, it was, I'm not perfect enough to be a coach, because
Oh.
I have these issues that are unresolved. And that was my thought process, is how can you be a coach if you're not doing it yourself? Like that's
Oh.
kind of what I was thinking. I know. It's kind of what I was thinking.
Mm-mm.
And then when you talked about your past and stuff like that, I was like, oh, okay, like you could still learn it, and then you could still work on yourself, because you're always, we're always working on yourselves. Every day, every little bit counts. And I think it's more beneficial for clients because you have your story to share, and you know how it feels to
Mhm.
be in their shoes or similar shoes.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Wonderful. Okay. So now we're closing that chapter. We've You're graduating next week, but by the time this airs, you'll be done.
Yeah.
You're thinking back. You meet Samantha from, we'll say, 2020. What advice would you give someone that's listening to this or to yourself back then?
I probably would just say take your time and find someone that is really true to themselves, that can help you coach, and to not be afraid, because even if you think you know everything or all about yourself and you've gone to therapy, there's always more to learn. There really is. Because I thought I knew more. I thought I was more self-aware.
Mhm.
My therapist said I was self-aware, and I am self-aware. It's just, you don't know what you don't know.
Right. Right. And I
And
can even
that's
share my experience with that. I had a therapist one time and she was great for where I was at in life. And was having body image issues. And I remember telling, like, kind of trying to bring it up, like dancing around it in a way,
Mhm.
because it was really, at the time I didn't know everybody had body image issues.
Mhm.
And it was something that really plagued me. And so I kind of brought it up to her and she just said, "You're fine," and shrugged it off.
Really.
Yeah. And I remember thinking, well, like, okay, like I'm fine then. Like this must be just the normal is to feel this way. But she didn't ask, like, and at this time, I was working out excessively. I
Mhm.
was super paleo and I probably was trying to fast at that point as well. And, so to me, that was, well, if she says I'm fine, then I'm fine. And these other people that look at my lifestyle and they either tell me, "Oh, I wish I could be like you." And I would think like, well, then you just need to like nut up and butt up. Or if they express concerns, I would just say like, well, you just like, you just don't understand the lifestyle. Like this is just the
Mhm.
lifestyle I'm choosing. So I think it's really important that you're sharing that. Like, yeah, I went to therapy. Like I've been to therapy a lot too. But sometimes there's something that's missing. And I think it's important to recognize like some therapists are great. And I would hope most therapists are, but sometimes it's hard to be honest about this aspect, right?
Mhm.
Of like to really say, like, I don't feel good in my body. And it's like, I tell myself that I'm, this and that I'm stupid and this and that to a therapist when you're trying to work on maybe like a relationship or maybe like a job thing or maybe something with your family, right? And then
Right.
to bring in your body into it, it's like, well, that's another can of worms that honestly a lot of us don't really want to unpack. So I'm glad that you shared that because I think it's really important for people to realize like you can be in therapy and you can be doing this because sometimes I'll
Hmm.
have client calls or clarity calls and they'll be like, well, I'm already doing therapy. And I'm like, this is kind of different though. Like,
Right.
this is, if anything, this should complement what you're trying to do and working on yourself. So I appreciate that. Ah, okay. Anything else from you?
Um, yeah, I would just say that one of the really big things I also learned with eating like at an event or out to eat, and you
Hmm.
know it's going to be a higher calorie meal because that's just how it is. Um, and if you eat dessert and all that other fun stuff, is I forgot to say is prior I would maybe not if say if it was like lunch we were going out to eat,
Uh-huh.
I did not eat breakfast. I would skip a meal because it would count um towards
Yeah.
the calories for the day. And you taught me to just eat the eat breakfast,
Yeah.
but you know, look at what you're going to eat for the day. And if you're going to say you're going to have pizza for lunch, well then you're going to want a higher protein breakfast and a higher protein lunch because you're going to have a higher carb fat, you know, lunch, which and that's okay. So
Hmm.
you want the other meals to complement
Hmm.
your lunch, but it's still okay to eat.
Yes, it's totally okay to eat. It's well, again, though, because we were told don't eat, don't eat, don't eat for so long.
Hmm.
And people got results in spite of that recommendation, right? Of I just don't eat and I get results. But then they gain the weight
Hmm.
back because then they start eating again. So
Yeah.
I think that's important that you discuss that. So, okay, if you liked today's episode, please give us a like and a follow. You can find today's episode on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. If you are interested in coaching with us, you are welcome to set up a clarity call. There will be a link below with either myself or Coach Christina. And if there's one thing that you need to remember, it's this: what you say in the mind, you see in the mirror.